Good morning, I'm Adam Sexton. The narrow Democratic majorities in Washington are moving forward with big agenda items. And when you try to get big things done, you get big debates. As we've seen over the last decade and a half at the State House in Concord and on Capitol Hill, if there's anyone who thrives in a good legislative or policy fight, it is Senator Maggie Hassan, who joins us on Close Up this morning. Senator, thanks for connecting with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a lifetime of news since we last had you on the program at the end of 2020, but let's start with the most recent developments on gun control. President Biden just issued a new executive order targeting homemade firearms and directing the DOJ to publish model language for red flag laws nationwide. But even he's saying an executive order isn't enough and that Congress and the Senate need to act. Why not bring something back, like the assault weapons ban that was on the law books as recently as 2004? Would you be a yes vote for that?
So first of all, I want to just offer my condolences to all of the loved ones who have lost a family member, even over the last few days, to gun violence. We've seen more mass shootings, and we see an accelerating level of them all the time. We also know we lose Americans to gun violence through suicide, as well as through interpersonal individual violence. So we see tragedy upon tragedy in this country because of the easy access to guns, and we need to have common sense gun safety laws in this country, something I've long supported, and I'm committed to working across the aisle to get done. I'm glad the president took the actions he did, but he also was right in saying that thoughts and prayers alone are not enough, and I know that within the Democratic caucus, we are having these conversations, and I know that we are having conversations with colleagues on the other side of the aisle too. So I am committed to trying to address this deeply, deeply troubling and disturbing level of violence in our country while also respecting Second Amendment rights.
To the question, though, an assault weapons ban, would you vote in favor of that?
I always have to look at the details of any legislation, but yes, I have supported assault weapon bans in the past, and I think it is appropriate to look at right now.
If we wind the clock back a couple of weeks, you and Senator Shaheen were taking a tremendous amount of heat for a vote you took within the American Rescue Plan to not put an increase in the minimum wage into that bill to $15. A lot of Democrats, a lot of progressives felt that was the opportunity and it should have been taken. Explain your vote.
Well, so I have long supported an increase in the minimum wage. If people work 40 hours a week, they shouldn't live at or below the poverty level. But in fact, that is the situation for thousands of families. And so it's really important that we raise the minimum wage. I've long supported an increase up to $12 an hour. I'm certainly open to an increase to $15 an hour. But when you look at the language that Senator Sanders put forward, it also would make critical and pretty quick changes to the way restaurants and other small businesses need to pay their employees, but particularly for tipped employees. It would double the amount of base pay that restaurants needed to pay their employees within the year. And just as we're coming out of a pandemic and the restaurant industry has been so hard hit, that seemed like the wrong approach to take at this time. So I am continuing to have discussions with Democrats and Republicans about the minimum wage, and I look forward to getting meaningful change done here.
So it sounds like you had concerns about policy, procedure, and timing, but can you tell us when you will prioritize that minimum wage vote? When are you going to do that?
Well, we are in conversations within the Senate about that right now. As you know, this requires some agreement among senators about calendar and agenda and the need to get the requisite votes to do it.
Let's move now to the situation at the border, that influx of migrants. Do you consider this to be a crisis?
Oh, we have a crisis at the border. We need a secure and safe border. We also need to enforce our laws in accordance with our values and humanely. And it's a false choice to say that we can't do both. But we certainly need additional personnel at the border. We need new technology at the border. We need to increase resources not only for Customs and Border Protection, but for the Office of Refugee Resettlement, more judges, more capacity, so that we can process asylum asylum seekers safely and quickly, and adjudicate their claims as safely as we can. It's also critically important that the Biden administration has begun to do the necessary outreach to those Northern Triangle countries where so many of these asylum seekers are coming from. They are coming for a variety of reasons, but when you combine the violence, the corruption, and frankly, the terrible weather disasters they've had, you see increased numbers willing to make this very dangerous trek to try to find asylum in our country. So it's really important that the Biden administration has deployed top officials there to try to find ways to keep people from making this journey and coming to our border in the first place. That's another area where we really need to continue these efforts. But at the end of the day, we can't have open borders, and we need to be a country that respects the rule of law while also respecting our values and treating people humanely.
One of the latest figures I saw was 17,000 unaccompanied minors, kids without adults essentially, in U.S. custody right now at the southern border. That's staggering. And to say that it's intolerable and unsustainable, I guess, would be an understatement. So how do you treat those children in a humane fashion, give them what they need as small human beings, without incentivizing more of that kind of migration?
Right. Well, that's where you see the Biden administration taking steps to make sure that they've got the facilities they need to keep children safe, but also, again, dealing with the root causes of this migration from those Northern Triangle countries. So it's, again, this is a tough problem. I will say that the vast majority of the unaccompanied minors who are coming are teenagers, so they are not as small and fragile as some of the younger children that we've seen in the past. But regardless of their age, we need to take care of children in accordance with our values. So the Biden administration is setting up the kind of shelters that are humane and safe and meet our standards, and they're making sure that the people who deal with these children have experience and the right kind of credentials to be supervising young children. At the end of the day, though, we have to get at the root causes. I mean, think about the conditions that would make it reasonable for a parent to encourage their child to take this trek across a dangerous desert to get to the United States. We really have to address this at the root cause, as well as beef up our own security and processing capacity.
This voting law in Georgia, the president is calling it the new Jim Crow. Republicans say that charge is exaggerated. What's different now in this situation, it seems like, is we're seeing more corporations, Coca-Cola, Major League Baseball, stepping in and trying to play a role in this policy discussion. Obviously, you have your position on what that law is, but do you see any danger in a greater fusion between sort of corporate activism and political activism?
Well, we've certainly seen a lot of dark money fueled by corporations in American elections now, especially since the Citizens United decision was made back in 2010. So this isn't exactly new for corporations to be exercising their opinions. But I do think what's really important here is that this is about people speaking up to say that all Americans have a right to vote. It is the foundational right that we have. It is preservative of all of our other rights. And our votes are what result in the kinds of policies, whether they're economic, whether they're social, that really determine the quality of life for so many Americans. When I talk to Granite Staters, what they tell me is they want to be able to work hard at a good job and build a better future for their kids. They want to live in safe neighborhoods and have good schools and have access to the health care they need. They want their loved ones cared for, and they want to be able to build a life that they've dreamed about. That's what your vote is actually about. And so it's really important that when anybody in a powerful position, and that would certainly include some of the leaders of these large corporations, sees injustice or inequity or an attempt to suppress the vote, that they speak up. And all Americans have that right. And I think it's critically important that we continue to do that and continue to make sure that voters get to choose their elected officials rather than have their elected officials rig the system to choose the voters.
Safe to say we wouldn't see what's going on in Georgia without President Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. We're just 3 months removed now since the Capitol insurrection. Obviously, you were put in danger that day. And just recently, we saw another Capitol police officer killed. Are the days of a truly open U.S. Capitol gone forever?
Well, so first of all, I just am thinking of the family of Officer Evans as we all mourn his loss and as we all share in that renewed sense of horror about violence at our Capitol. We need to find a way to secure the Capitol and make sure that we're protecting the public, lawmakers, members of the media, and law enforcement themselves. But we want the Capitol to be open to the public because it is America's temple of democracy. And we need to find a way to do that. There's ongoing work within the Senate and the House, along with new security leaders at the Capitol, to try to make sure that we're striking this balance correctly. And I look forward to those ongoing discussions because, again, this is the people's capital, and we want the public to be able to enjoy it. One of the things I love when I am in D.C. On the weekends, as I was more over the last year because of the pandemic, was being able to see families, kicking a soccer ball and having a picnic on the Capitol lawn. And that's what we want.
One quick question before we hit the break. One of the indelible images of January 6th is your colleague Josh Hawley of Missouri raising that fist to the crowd there. Obviously, you took a lot of heat from your colleagues there. I'm curious, are you going to work with him ever again, co-sponsor legislation? Or are you that upset about what he did that day?
Look, I am very concerned about what happened on January 6th and all the things that led up to January 6th. It was the first time in our country's history that there was a violent interruption of the peaceful transfer of power, which is the hallmark of our democracy. So I will continue to work to hold my colleagues accountable for behavior on that day that I think was unacceptable and undemocratic. It is also my job to get the work of the people of New Hampshire and the people of our country done, and to listen to them and address the priorities they articulate. And so I'll continue to work across the aisle and continue to get things done. And if it happens that some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were people whose behavior on the 6th I found unacceptable, I'll find ways to address that, but I also know that my job is to get work done for the people of this state.